Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you. Many of you know I'm a huge supporter of not just entrepreneurialism, but young entrepreneurialism. Living in an entitlement generation, it's vital that we shift our mentality from finishing our schooling and going out and asking for a job to possibly going out and getting the right education and creating our own job, or maybe even a job for others. And this education has to start at a very young age. Tonight we're going to be talking to a very special guest who's leading the troops, so to speak, in this young movement. We're going to be talking to an entrepreneur that has had a hit show, the Emmy Award-winning BizKids. Jamie Hammond's on the show. Huge fan. Very successful lady. And we're also going to be talking to real estate guru Amy Norris is back with us. Amy. She's going to be telling us what's going on in the real estate market, and we're going to be joined by our dear friend Ian Norris, our co-host. Don't go anywhere. We have an amazing show. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome to the show. Thank you. I'm joined by my dear friend Ian Norris. He's co-hosting with us. Ian, how have you been?
Good, Dan. How are you?
Great to see you. I'm doing fantastic. It seems like I haven't seen you in a while.
Well, I'm sorry about that. But
it's my loss. Yeah, you're right.
Don't tell everyone, otherwise they want to know your secret.
Well, I'm excited about our show tonight. As you know, I'm a huge fan of BizKids. I've talked about it many times on the show. And I owe a lot of it to my 5-year-old. We started watching the show, and I think I got more involved than he did, and I was like, what is this television show? And sometimes he's not even home, and I'm out there watching, and my wife's like, what are you doing? But man, it's so impressive to see what young people can grasp. Mm-hmm. And I know that I've kind of turned you on to the show as well. Yeah.
And let me ask you a question, if I may, along that line. You started out in business fairly young. So I wanted to ask you, through the years, what perhaps just the number one thing that's jumped into your mind every single time, regularly, that's influenced or guided your business actions over the years?
Man, there's a lot of things, but I would have to say that so many people, especially young people, have great visions. They have visions of, I mean, literally changing the world. If you ask a young person, what do you want to do? And I want to be the president of the United States. I want to be an astronaut. And so many times as adults, we say, you know, come on, be realistic. You're never going to be an astronaut. You're never going to do this or that. And I think that even as adults, when we have these visions, we kind of wait to collect the how we're going to do it. We might have this great picture in our head of what we want, but we don't know how to do it. And we're kind of waiting to collect the how before we get started. And as we know, the world changes so much, technology changes so much. By the time we could collect all the how, the world's changed so much, you need a new how again. So I think that once you have these great visions, you got to just jump in, you got to get started. You can't be afraid of failure. You're going to fail, and that's a great learning tool. And like you said, just jump in and figure it out.
I like that. And one that comes repeatedly to my mind is you become what you do repeatedly.
Yeah.
And excellence, or indeed any other business trait that you develop, doesn't occur because of a single act, but because of the habits that you have, that you develop.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that for me personally has repeatedly reared its ugly head.
Yeah, well, and like you say, I'm a huge believer in cause and effect. You know what I mean? If you constantly take big actions, you're going to have big reactions. You know, if you take a bunch of tiny little actions, you're going to have a lot of little reaction, and sometimes the reaction is not the best reaction.
So exactly what you said.
Again, it's not one time getting out there and doing something big, but repeatedly developing habits that are good. You're going to have some success. So yeah, I'm very excited. And you know what's interesting is like I said, I became a fan of the show, and I just said, I got to find a phone number. I have got to talk to whoever's putting this out there, and I got a hold of our guest, Jamie Hammond, and I said, I'm the biggest fan. First me, then my 5-year-old. And
doesn't have to be kids only, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I said, you know, probably I would say that, and if you haven't checked out BizKids, you gotta check it out on PBS. But I thought, you know, this is probably one of the most entrepreneurial things on television. And so we'll find out much more about this when she comes out, as well as her vision. But it's really quite a movement
Looking forward
that she started. Before we bring Jamie out, I wanted to bring out a very dear friend whom I think you know a little bit, entrepreneur and real estate guru, Amy Norris, going to tell us what's happening in the market. Give her a hand, Amy. Welcome, welcome. Great to see you again. Ooh. You're getting quite an applause there. How are you? You look fantastic.
Thank you. I'm wonderful.
Well, we know that many people are in real estate right now. Maybe many people are looking to sell the property they have, or possibly, I hear things are kind of turning and it's becoming more of a buyer's or excuse me, a seller's market even. But what do you have for us in your bag of tricks? What tips can you give us?
If you are looking to sell your property, there's a few things that it would probably be beneficial for you to ask an agent, like how many properties have you sold? How many sellers are you working with? What's your dollar volume sold? Not everybody's done 50 million, but you can get an idea of their experience level. It's kind of like doctors, when you're going to have surgery.
Right.
You put the odds in your favor by going with someone who's had a proven amount
track
of
record on that surgery.
Exactly.
Right. So you don't think they take offense to kind of almost being interviewed of saying, hey, how many have you done personally? That's totally okay.
It's part of the business, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
So get their experience level. Also, if they're working on a team, ask them, what part do they play? Because sometimes they can delegate quite a bit of it, and that's okay as long as you know.
Right.
How you interact with them. And you can also ask them or tell them your expectations. I know when I interview with sellers, I ask them, what makes a good agent to you and what makes a bad agent? And they'll tell me, oh, maybe it's communication, or maybe their last agent, they didn't put much time or thought into their pictures or their marketing. The marketing is very, very important. 95% of all properties are sold over the internet. So it takes more than just putting it in the MLS and putting
But asking them what they prefer. And that's a great point, because I've had people show properties for me, or I've looked at properties with an agent, and a lot of them are like, I don't want to pressure you, so you guys look at the house and I'll be watching TV over here. And in my mind, being an entrepreneur, I'm like, I hate this. I mean, the guy's not building any value. He doesn't deserve any commission. But other people might say, I just want to look at the house. I don't want to have anybody there trying to sell me the house. So it's really their preference.
Well, and my take on it is you give the buyer some space, but it's also good to point out, well, with this home, if you ever resold it, it has this advantage or this disadvantage. So you can think with the end in mind in the future. That to me, that makes a good agent. Right.
Well, certainly, you know firsthand what the market holds, and certainly I think that obviously in this region the market is turning. But let me ask you a question for people out there, maybe because of the economy in recent times, maybe they've had some dents in their credit, or maybe they don't have a lot of capital right now, and they're saying, I want to get out there, I want to have a great opportunity, but do we feel like real estate, obviously in times past, more millionaires have been created through real estate than anything else, but now, if somebody's looking to get started, do we still feel like real estate's a viable option for somebody on a part-time basis or full-time?
I think you can make an incredible living with real estate, and the great thing is you don't have to have a college degree.
Yep.
In a few months, you can get your license. If you're a good person, you're enthusiastic, you want to help people, you can do great at real estate.
Yeah, and not a lot of capital to get started either.
Right.
So it's a great option.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're in this region, it's much easier just to hire Amy, and they can get more information at amysellsthebeach.com.
Yep, at 855-844-SAND.
All right, SAND, that's easy to remember. Well, thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll be right back with entrepreneur and television star Jamie Hammond. So stick with us. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for sticking with us. Our guest tonight I'm particularly jazzed about because I'm a huge fan. Please welcome the Emmy Award-winning producer, Jamie Hammond. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm so excited to have you on. And I have to say, I talk about your show all the time. So I don't want to be like this crazy fan that's like, but well, yeah, I don't want to be a stalker. But originally, as I mentioned, I started watching BizKids with my 5-year-old. And I just had this notion, I said, I have to reach out. And we spoke on the phone, and I said, I'm a huge fan. So thank you so much for coming down and gracing us with all of your experience. And obviously you've had a tremendous successful career in television, but what was the spark of saying, you know, this is what I want to do. I want to get into the entertainment business?
Well, I actually got into the entertainment business by accident. I came in through financial and accounting background and was asked to do that part of a television special for ABC. And it was wonderful and terrible all at the same time. But it just turned me around from doing accounting. I've always loved the movies. I sang as a teenager. So it embraced my creative as well.
Well, and I didn't know, backstage you mentioned briefly that you were also in the music business for some time with some of the great artists like Jane's Addiction and
Warrant.
Warrant.
Yes, and that was just, again, you know, opportunity knocked, and there had been a big strike in the entertainment industry, so there wasn't much work. So when somebody asked me if I would be interested in doing that, I said, sure.
Sure. And I know that the things you produce, the shows, there's really a balance of entertainment along with education. Talk a little bit about why that's so important to you.
Well, there's a term that we've coined called edutainment.
Edutainment.
Because if you can make people laugh, they learn a lot better. The retention factor is tremendous, particularly with kids, but also with adults. So if you can make them laugh, they will remember what you're teaching them.
Well, and like we discussed, you know, I think at a very young age, kids can associate learning to, you know, have to, or it's not free will. You know, you better sit down and learn this. And what I love about the show is, you know, you have kids teaching other kids, and it's fun and it's interactive and it's really, it's cool to learn.
It is, and kids are watching other kids do cool stuff.
Yeah.
And I call it the I could do that factor.
Yeah.
Because these kids are from every demographic across the country and some internationally now. And so no matter where they find themselves in the spectrum of life, culturally, economically, they can get inspired by other kids. And that's what the show's all about, really.
Well, and before BizKids, you had quite a track record. You were obviously the producer of a show that so much of America has embraced, Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Well, I wasn't the creator, but
or the
I was
producer.
Part of yes, I was a producer.
And
on the show for
that show became like this, such an iconic and beloved show.
Children's television.
Yeah, it really did. How did that project come about?
Well, the creators, Bill Nye and Jim McKenna and Aaron Gottlieb, worked together in Seattle, Washington. And Jim and Aaron really saw that Bill was tremendously passionate about science. They all worked on a local comedy show called Almost Live. And they created the foundation for Bill's passion to really take off.
Yeah.
And I just luckily was invited onto that team, and it's still amazing because young people today come up, they're still showing it in middle school and high school classes for science, and I have a lot of young people in their 20s and 30s going, oh my God, you worked on that?
It's such a, well, and from when you first entered television to that time with Bill Nye, was it a quick process, or were you out there? You know, sometimes they say this is my, 10-year overnight success.
10-year overnight.
But
well, I had been working in television for 18 years before I started on Bill Nye the Science Guy, and I learned because my education was in finance and accounting, hence the passion to do BizKids. But I've tried to learn as much as I could about every aspect, and as you mentioned earlier, technology is changing all the time, and particularly it's relative to our business because it just is amazing. Overnight stuff changes. So you keep on learning, which is also a wonderful thing. I love to learn.
Well, and you've inspired so many, not only children, but parents around the country. And obviously you're the executive producer and also co-creator of BizKids. But I want to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to discuss how that whole thing came about and really what your vision is, because it's much more than a television show.
Yes.
So we'll be right back more with Jamie Hammond in a minute. Stick with us. Hi, I'm Dan Vega, entrepreneur and host of the Gulf Coast's favorite new talk show, Tuesdays with Dan. Join us every Tuesday where we come together and share success principles that will not only help you in your business, but in your personal life. Don't worry, this isn't some boring business talk show. It's an opportunity not only to hear from your favorite entrepreneurs and celebrity guests, but to receive real value every week. Check us out late night after Jimmy Kimmel and The Insider, or at 8 a.m. on My 35. You won't want to miss it. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm here with the lovely Jamie Hammond. And Jamie, before the break, we were talking about some of your successes. Obviously, Bill Nye the Science Guy, everybody remembers. But I know now you're the executive producer and also the co-creator of BizKids, whom I'm such a large fan. And that airs nationally on PBS. And with this show, obviously, everybody that watches our show knows that I'm a huge supporter, but how did that come about, making the transition from what you were doing to having the brainchild of BizKids?
BizKids? Well, between Bill Nye the Science Guy ended in 1998, and I produced about 11 other series for public television, and actually had always wanted to do a financial literacy and entrepreneurship. But mostly financial literacy was my background, and even though I am an entrepreneur. And a young woman came to me in Seattle because she really wanted to do a show about kid entrepreneurs. So this light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, this is the perfect marriage, because financial literacy can be a tad dry. And kids don't understand why it's important to them.
Right, sure.
But if they can see other kids doing cool stuff, then it becomes relative. So I brought Janine, who's this young woman, Janine Glesta, and Jim and Aaron, who I'd worked with on Bill Nye the Science Guy. The four of us got together and we created the format. And, you know, that's a process. And then pitched it to public television, and they liked the idea. And so we've been off and running since 2006.
Wow. And it's almost the incentive here, it's almost, instead of a show, it's almost like a movement.
It is.
And I know you do a lot of different things. In fact, we spoke a couple of weeks ago on the phone. You were just coming back from Washington, and you were out there doing what you could to get supporters of young entrepreneurialism.
Absolutely. And in fact, I believe very strongly that entrepreneurship is what will stabilize the world, particularly developing countries and countries that are having problems. And so, and BizKids is a full initiative around financial literacy and entrepreneurship. We have the foundation, it's a television series, but we also have a very resource-rich website with downloadable lesson plans for each and every episode, and other activities that teachers and parents and after-school programs can use and make their own.
Yeah.
And all kinds of things for kids, kid entrepreneurs, sample business plans.
Well, and I've been to the site many times, and that's just bizkids.com, right? If you haven't seen the site bizkids.com, you got to check it out, because as you mentioned, they make things so simple. There's sample templates for business plans, and they teach you all these very complex. I mean, I've had a hard time sometimes teaching adults some of these things, and you guys make it so simple and fun.
Oh, well,
you know what I noticed about the website is it's full, as you mentioned, of this information, and it's all available for free, and it's right there for people to use. There's no ulterior motive. That was one of the things that struck me about it.
Well, and that's why I think that PBS was such a great marriage for what you do, because we spoke about this briefly. Sad to say, with a lot of the big networks, it's more about the ratings than the actual value given and information. And you know, there's so much great programming on PBS, because it's still one of them, the networks out there that first and foremost you just get that it's about value. It's giving great television and great learning, and ratings was secondary.
Yeah, it's a really trusted resource.
That's right.
Parents, particularly for children's programming, can trust that their children are sitting down and not being sold something every 5 minutes.
Right.
And that it's very strongly vetted and safe.
Now, let me ask you, I've watched all of the episodes, I think, to date. I had to get caught up. But what's the process like of being able to have the kids on? Are you running ads across America? Is there a regular casting call, or how does that work?
Well, for the profiles of the young entrepreneurs, we do a lot of research. A whole department of the show is dedicated to finding kids with great stories all over the country doing all kinds of amazing things. And we reach out to, depending on their age, to their parents first.
Right.
And then to the kids, and they tell us their story. And we want to not only have the successes, but also kids that haven't been successful, because we really believe that you learn through failure. And if kids aren't afraid and they see other kids that have taken the leap, they'll be emulating that because they model other kids.
Well, and you know, obviously you can't be afraid of failure because, as you mentioned, it's such a great learning tool, and it's necessary. But you guys have had some great successes. In fact, we had one of the BizKids on our show, Ray Land, and which he attributes a lot of his success to watching the show and then later being on the show. And I know that he started his business when he was like 15 years old, and he came on our show. He flew here in his private plane with his own pilot, and then I just heard recently he sold his company for over $20 million. And so you've had some great success stories.
Oh, we have. I mean,
it's working.
It's working. It's truly working. And one of our two little girls who were 13 and 14 were on the show about 2 years ago. Their business is called Snap Caps. They were on Shark Tank last summer, getting a $300,000 commitment from the sharks.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've profiled almost 400 kids, and I would say 98% of them are successful one way or the other, because they either start again if they haven't had first initial success. It's just so inspiring. It's the best part of what I do.
Jamie, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm a huge fan.
Thank you
and
very much.
That's our show. We're out of time, but don't forget to get involved in your local community and be forgiving of others. Good night, everybody. That was great stuff. Hi, I'm Dan Vega, and thank you for watching our channel. I want to take a second to tell you about a resource that's helping thousands of people across the country, Blue University. Blue University is the premier online business school for entrepreneurs and business leaders. You know, if you find yourself in a day-to-day grind where you've lost your joy, or you're just tired of struggling, then check out blue.university. That's BLU.university. I can promise that you receive nothing short of a multi-million-dollar education. And if you want a completely different life in 3 to 6 months and a way to create wealth in 5 years or less, then again, check it out. That's BLU.university. Find out why blue is the new color of success. Also, make sure to subscribe to this channel or to give us a good rating, but that's only if you see value. And when you do receive value, make sure to share it with someone else. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.